Hi golfers, Nick here for Nick Taylor Golf. It's Friday, so welcome to another lesson on golf tips. I'm down here in Cassique Golf Club in Kiawah Island in South Carolina. Amazing facility here, out here on the golf range, filming some videos. We're going to talk a look at Hackmotion today, but first of all I just want to say a big thanks to my friend Dylan for allowing me to film this video today. So thanks man, really appreciate it. So in today's video we're going to take a look at the wrist angles in the golf swing. We've got the Hackmotion here to show you how that relates to the club face. We're going to take a look at a very simple piece of data using the app today. So we're going to take a look at the extension of the wrist, which people might refer to as cupping the wrist, and we can take a look at the flexion of the wrist, where you might refer to that as bowing the wrist. So we can take a look at that movement, how you can use the app, how you can use the sensor to help you golfers out there play better golf. Okay, pretty good shot, almost dead straight, that ball. For those of you golfers out there not familiar with the Hackmotion, you can see I'm wearing these two sensors here. So we have one here on kind of my forearm and another one here on my glove, and you can see these two sensors are going to read how I move my wrist in the swing. In today's video we're going to take a look at some club face control. Now there's two apps that you get with Hackmotion. You got the Hackmotion Pro, which goes into lots of data, graphs, etc. Whereas we have the Hackmotion Player app here, which is very straightforward. It gives us some good graphics. I'm going to use this Player app today to show you guys how you can use this sensor to help you improve your golf, but also give you some understanding on how you move your wrists in the golf swing. So you can see on the screen here we have address, top and impact. So we're going to take a look first of all at starting a session. Very simple, just start a session, and we need to calibrate this sensor. So the first thing we need to do is just place the arm out pretty straight, get this arm parallel to my fingers. Once it's in position you can extend your palm and then it's ready to go. You can see on the graphic there is how the hand is moving as I move mine. Now we return to the session here, and you can see here on the screen we've got the graphic kind of middle bottom of the screen. On the left hand side we have extension number, which is positive. So basically if you cup your wrist, that's going to extend the wrist. If you flex it, that number goes to negative. That's kind of where you bow your wrist. So flexion and extension of the wrist. We're going to use these two parameters today to kind of understand what happens to the ball flight and the club face depending on how you move your wrist. So when I hit a shot here, we're going to get some data at the address position, how my wrist changes to the top of the backswing, and how it changes again at impact. So first of all, I'm just going to hit a standard shot and we're going to take a look at some of this data. So I've just got a standard 8-iron here. We've got the flag maybe about 150, kind of parallel to this alignment stick here. So I'm just going to kind of hit my standard kind of golf swing. On the screen here I can see my wrist has some sort of extension. That's quite important to note. Depending on how you grip the club, generally if you have quite a strong grip you're going to have more kind of extension here to the wrist. If you have kind of a weaker, you're going to have a flatter wrist. So the number at setup is generally some degree of extension, just depending on how you have your hand turned on the grip. So I'm expecting some extension here at the top. It's more important how that changes in the golf swing. So first of all, normal setup, so I'm going to have around 30 degrees probably of extension when I've been testing this out. Let's see how this changes as I go into the backswing and then into the downswing. Okay, pretty good shot, almost dead straight, that ball flight there. So when I hit that shot there, you can see we get some data here on the screen. So we've got a green there for the top of the swing, which means that the top of the swing was pretty good, however the impact wasn't quite within the range. So we take a look at this data here. So the address position, I had 21 degrees of extension to my wrist. So that's extension, that's flexion. At the top it stayed very similar, and you can see it was within the range. So I got a tick for that one. It was pretty good. So I kept my wrist pretty flat at the top. Now as I came into the downswing, I actually increased the flexion of my wrist to 14 from 21, but it wasn't quite enough. So this shows you kind of what the tour players would do. So this is probably why I'm filming this video and not actually playing on tour right now, is because my impact position was just outside the range. Now it wasn't hugely outside the range, it would go red if it was massively outside the range, but I didn't quite get enough flexion. So that can affect how I close the face, and it can affect kind of how I lean the shaft into the ball. So definitely for me, I could use this app for me to get better, but more important, we're going to kind of give you guys some information. And one of the biggest mistakes I see what golfers make using their wrist and how that affects the club face and the ball flight. So for this next shot I'm going to set up as I normally do, but what I'm going to try and do in this particular swing is try and extend my wrist, see what happens to the data, see what happens to the ball flight, and see what happens to the club face. Now I can see already, if I extend my wrist this way, you can see this face is quite open. As soon as I start arching and flexing my wrist, see how that face closes. So we're going to hit a couple of different shots here and see what happens to the ball flight and the data that we get from the app here. Okay, so from a kind of normal setup here, I'm just going to try and feel this extension at the top. So just looking at the screen here and how that kind of affects the wrist angle there. I'm extending it, and I'm going to try and keep that extended coming through. So I'm expecting this face to open. So from kind of a normal setup here, let's see if I can get this extension number up quite high. Okay, very high ball flight, popped up to the right, it's got no distance on it. So now, when we take a look at the data, you can see those numbers there go red. So we've got 21 degrees of extension at the setup position, but at the top I've increased that to like 60, and it's 33 outside the range. So these numbers are based on what kind of the best players would do. So they would keep that wrist pretty flat at the top. And actually at impact, this is the interesting one, the best players will actually have more flexion at impact than they had at setup, and that helps them lean the shaft, helps them deal off the face. You saw that shot went right up into the air, way out to the right. So you can see that at impact there, I was outside the range by 25 degrees. So at the top I was outside 33, outside at impact 25. And you see this a lot in the bay here. The golfers that kind of flex their wrist, opens that club face, adds loft, loses distance and goes way to the right. Now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to try and flex my wrist in the swing. Now I'm expecting if I flex my wrist, this face is going to close a lot more at the top of the swing, and if I can keep that flexed on the way down, it's going to keep the face more closed. It's going to help me lean the shaft, it's going to help me strike the ball better, lower and hit the ball further, which is the opposite to the extension, which is what kind of the highest handicappers do. So I'm going to kind of set up as close as I can to what I normally do, but I'm really going to arch this as much as possible, see what happens to the data, see what happens to the ball flight. As I'm doing these practice swings here, I can see the flexion number on the screen there, 30 degrees, 38 degrees, setup, positive, extension, and then negative is the flexion. So I've got to really try and change this wrist movement here as best as I can. Let's really try and exaggerate that. Okay, so felt like I had a lot more shaft lean. Actually pretty good shot. Went a bit more to the left, that one. Definitely lower, definitely better strike. I had a good impact position. I was outside the range at the top of my swing. So just shows me this kind of feel was probably quite good for me, because it definitely gave me a lower ball flight. It actually went a bit to the left, which I was kind of expecting there. Maybe didn't exaggerate as much as I felt like I did. Now, the interesting thing is here, because I was trying to really feel that kind of flex in my backswing, I had a completely different address position. So my address position, instead of being like 20 degrees or 15 degrees of extension, I had 6, so a lot flatter. At the top, I decreased that to negative 25, which is over 20 degrees outside the range, which is based on what the tour players do. They would keep their wrist extension or flexion very constant through the backswing, but then flex it as it comes down to lean the shaft, close the face, strike the ball better. That's why these are the best players in the world that hit the ball so far. Then at impact, I had negative 22, which is almost outside the range. On the negative side there, it's really at the top end. You can see that the great thing about this app, it kind of gives you these parameters, and you can see that at impact there, the tour player would be between 9 and 24 if they start at 6. So you can see at 22, I was down the top end there of kind of the flexion of the wrist, which is why that ball went a bit to the left. So you can see a big difference in kind of the trajectory of that shot, the ball flight, the distance that it goes as well. So it makes a big difference how you use your wrist in the golf swing. Just switch the camera around to the front here, and just to explain what this should look like at impact. So when we set up, we have slight cup to the wrist for most golfers as they grip it. Like I said, the stronger the grip, the more cup they're going to have. However, the point to take away from this, guys, is at impact, whatever the angle is here, the best players will have between 15 and 30 degrees more flexion, which is this way. They'll lean that shaft. That takes the loft off, very important. When we took a look at that high right shot, my wrist came in with more extension to the wrist, added loft, moves that low point back. So the best players will flex their wrist, takes the loft off it, drives it forward. So the way I would kind of practice this, you saw the shot hit with the kind of the flexion of the wrist, and that ball went a lot lower, pulled slightly to the left. Now, the way to kind of practice this would be at setup, I would actually try and have a little bit more forward shaft lean at setup. Then I'd want you to try and really feel that logo points down to the ground, and then as it comes through, really try and keep that handle forward. This should get that low point further forward. Now I'm going to try and make the swing. I'm going to have a slightly shorter follow through, because it's going to be easier for me to kind of really feel that extension as I go through. I'm really going to try and arch my wrist this way to keep that loft off and lower the ball flight. So it's going to be slightly short finish than normal. I'm going to try and handle forward, slightly flatter wrist, really keep that flex going back. drive it forward, crisp shot, absolutely pure. Low point control, awesome. Ball was here, divots there. So that's a really good drill. If you're really slice the golf ball, you can flex that wrist coming back, keep it flexed coming down. It's going to help you take the loft off the face. It's going to help you keep that handle forward at impact, make better contact and hit better shots. So thanks for watching, golfers. If you want a bit more information about Hackmotion, I'm going to put a link in here. This gives you opportunity to get free shipping on the products. Absolutely awesome product, really good kind of instant feedback, really good graphics. Really enjoy using this with my students. So thanks for watching, golfers. Hopefully the video helps. If it did, please put your comments in the box below, and I'll see you again next week for another video.